Hello YouTube, LD50 here, and we're back to talk about our melee Amara build, Phaseslam melee Amara using the face puncher. I have done a build video on this, I'll link in the description, but we're going to revisit it anyway for level 65 and talk about the new the Muse from the new DLC, and also give a little bit of demonstration of the Terra anointed gear that is currently available from the Bloody Harvest event, which is running until November the 5th. So our build here is based around the face puncher, and I'm currently using a Phaseslam anointed face puncher because I use Phaseslam as my action skill. You may find that you prefer to use the 300/90 or the consecutive hits face puncher, depending on your playstyle and depending on your action skill. This is a Phaseslam build. I'm sure it will work with the other action skills, but it's fun to use Phaseslam, so that's what this build is all about. Using a Trick Unforgiven here for crit swapping. You don't have to use the Trick Unforgiven. You can use this build perfectly fine without crit swapping, but it makes doing bosses a little bit easier. You can one-shot the bosses that don't have immunity phases, like Grave Ward and the Ruiner. Shield wise, I prefer to use the Frozen Heart because the Cryo Nova will freeze enemies. This has an action skill start anointment, so when I use Phaseslam, it releases the Cryo Nova, freezes enemies in place. Those frozen enemies take bonus melee damage, and also replenishes your health with 30% of the Nova damage returned as health. You may prefer to use a Faulty Star or a Stinger, and there are occasions where you might want to use a low-level Brawler Ward, but for general mobbing we're going to use our Frozen Heart. I like to use a Cryo Hex. This one has action skill and radiation damage as the anointment, but you may choose to use a different grenade. This is what suits me, and this build requires a Knife Drain White Elephant. That's because we're not going to go down as far as sustainment in the red tree, and so we need a source to give us health or lifesteal. If you're going to look for passives, then try to get melee damage, area of effect damage, action skill cooldown rate, splash damage. Anything like that would help. Even Hyperion critical damage, but not shotgun damage. Shotgun damage will not work with the face puncher. Only the Hyperion critical damage, and that only applies to the sticky bombs. So in the previous video we were using the Breaker Com. We can also use the Spiritual Driver or the Phaseslam. These are both all excellent comms, but currently I'm using the Muse to give it a go. I think it works very well. It boosts interesting skills. So that's the comm that I'm using at the moment, but obviously that's a DLC 4 comm. If you don't have the DLC, then you can use the Breaker or the Driver or the Phaseslam. Those are all available from the vanilla game. Skill wise, in the Brawl tree we want to make our way all the way down to the bottom, so we want to give ourselves some passive health regen. So we're going to put 5 out of 5 into Clarity, 5 out of 5 into Helping Hands to give us damage reduction, 5 out of 5 into Arms Deal to give us splash damage. The splash damage bonus here applies to the sticky bombs from the White Elephant. 3 out of 3 into Samsara, and a point into Find Your Center. Find Your Center is boosting melee damage by 100%. Samsara is giving us gun damage and health regeneration after using action skill, or after damaging enemies with our action skill. And we need to put a further point to get down to Jab Cross. I've chosen to put this point into Root to Rise to give a little bit extra health, but you could put the point into Mindfulness or into Vigor, whichever suits your playstyle. Importantly, you must have your 5 out of 5 in Arms Deal, and you really should have your Helping Hands and Clarity. Making our way down to Jab Cross, we want to put 5 out of 5 into Jab Cross. This is currently being boosted by the comm as well. because when Amara deals melee damage to an enemy, she gains increase in action skill damage. So the combat loop is shoot with the face puncher, use the Phaseslam, and the Phaseslam damage is then boosted by this skill. And then finally working our way down to Blitz to give ourselves extra melee damage. This is a melee based build. We will have a point left from one of the other trees, which you could put into Guardian Angel here. I've chosen not to, but speccing into Guardian Angel is a good thing if you are doing one of the takedowns, where certainly if you're doing it solo with nobody to get you up in fight for your life, having Guardian Angel is quite a bonus there, but for most purposes you don't need it. Going down the blue tree, 5 out of 5 into Do Harm, because we want to boost the action skill damage, and Do Harm will do that. 3 out of 3 into Fast Hands, because reloading a gun with only 6 or 8 shots in the magazine is very handy. Whilst you're in the reload animation, you're susceptible to taking damage, so being able to reload faster is good. Also, if you do choose to use the crit swap mechanic, then weapon swap speed here bonus is also useful. I'm putting 3 out of 3 into Transcend, I'm putting just 2 into Restless, and I'm putting a single point into Violent Tapestry. That's to get our rush stacks generated. Our rush stacks will affect our action skill damage. 1 point into Ascendant, because it boosts whichever is your favourite augment, and 3 out of 3 into Laid Bare, 3 out of 3 into Wrath. Currently Laid Bare is being boosted by this Musecom, but the Musecom that you find may not be able to boost this. It's luck of the draw there, really. I'm lucky to have a fairly decent one, but 3 out of 3 points here will actually boost it by a substantial amount. Let's take that com off so you can see what the skill tree without it being boosted by our com. So it will give you 25% extra gun damage, or all damage in fact, so that's damage from the grenade as well, and dots after you've damaged an enemy with your action skill. So you would use a Phaseslam into a bunch of enemies, and then they all take extra damage for a few seconds afterwards. 1 point into Remnant, because we need to activate this skill. We're not looking for the Remnant damage itself, but we're looking for the overkill damage. 3 out of 3 into Awakening, because this will make our rush stacks more effective, and getting all the way down to the capstone here, Avatar, so we can use our action skill twice before it needs to cool down. Then finally into the red tree here, 5 out of 5 into Infusion, a single point into Illuminated Fist, and if you're going to use Guardian Angel, then you would have 4 points into Tempest here. But I'm not using Guardian Angel at the moment, so I can afford to put the extra point in. That is giving us 30% elemental damage boost to our action skill damage, and to the elemental damage from the sticky bombs. And then Illuminated Fist will apply our currently selected action skill element to our melee damage to our face puncher, therefore boosting our damage. And that skill is boosted by the Musecom. So in this instance, boosted up to 150%. Now you may find a Musecom that boosts it more than 1 point. I believe that this is an error and may well get fixed in the future. However, if you do find a com with 3 out of 1 in Illuminated Fist, you'll see a massive increase in melee damage. But don't be surprised if in some time in the future Gearbox decide to adjust that and make it so that it's only a single point added to this skill. So that is our skill tree. I'll rotate it once so that you can see it in more detail, and I will link the build in the description to the BL3 build calculator, so that you've got an easy way to view the skills. Guardian rank, we want to make our way all the way down to Groundbreaker. as 125 points, but I urge you to invest the points into the enforcer tree to get down there. That will increase your damage substantially. Shield reboot and emergency response are skills that you can turn on and off depending on which shield you're using. So if you're going to use the level 1 Brawler Ward, you will probably want to turn these Guardian perks off. Topped off again is a skill that increases cooldown rate whilst at full shields. So for tankier shields, not to the Brawler Wards, then you will want to have this skill enabled. But if you're using the Brawler Ward with your shield down all of the time to get them bonus melee damage, you'll find that topped off won't give you much benefit at all, which is the reason that I've put 2 points into Restless. So those times when I'm using the Brawler Ward, Restless will at least increase my cooldown rate a little bit. Finally, we'll have a quick look at the modifiers for Mayhem. I happen to like Speed Demon, because if you are going to use the driver comm, it will boost the driver comm, and just being able to zip around and get between one combat scenario and another is helpful, or to get yourself out of danger, and who doesn't like to go fast. Mob mentality, that was the best one that I could roll. I think I would have preferred to have had Healy Avenger, because that gives you more opportunities for second wind. That is the reason I've taken Drone Ranger, because the drones give you a great opportunity for second winds if you do go down. So basically those are non-objectionable medium and hard modifiers, and then very hard dazed and infused. Enemies may be infused with a random element. Infused enemies are immune to that type of damage and release a nova when killed. Well, the sticky bombs do random elemental damage, and you're never going to match it up completely, but the melee damage itself is non-elemental, so won't be affected by dazed and infused. And you'll see from the gameplay that actually Dazed and Infused is quite a good modifier. It also means that you can see the enemies easily in darker environments. I found that quite helpful. So that is the build. We will go over to Athena's now and run through an area, and then I'm going to have another little talk about the terror anointments. And then we'll probably enable the terror anointment, or enable the terror event, Bloody Harvest event, so that we can show the terror anointment in action as well. But we'll head over to Athena's and show the build as it is without the event on first. So I'll see you over there. Welcome back. Here we are at Athena's. We'll run through the first 3 areas with 3 different face punchers with different anointments on, and I think then what we'll do is we will save quit, enable the event, and we'll take care of the last part of the map with the terror anointed face puncher, and I'll talk about that when we do that. So the first area that we're going to go through is we're going to use this Phaseslam. Melee damage is increased by 200% anointed face puncher. Happens to be my particular favourite for this build, but we will use the consecutive hits and the 300 over 90 so that you can see the difference between the different anointments. So moving forward,
training. Feels so right.
And as you can see, no problem with this build at all. Athena's is not the most challenging map, but it is Mayhem 10, and enemies do have a substantial amount of health and shields. They also spawn with Mayhem 10 weapons, which means that they do more damage on Mayhem 10 than they do on Mayhem 0. We'll swap over to our consecutive hits anointed face puncher for the next area. Now the consecutive hits anointed face puncher will require some damage to activate the anointment. Any damage on the battlefield is considered to be consecutive hits, so an ideal way is to throw out a couple of grenades. That will start to get the damage stacks up, and the more you use this, the more powerful this weapon will become. And we're one-tapping most things here. The Nova from the Frozen Heart is very powerful.
I can feel the power.
And there we go, second area completed with the consecutive hits anointed face puncher. You'll notice that my face punchers have different skins on them. That's to aid me visually, so I know which one I've got in my hand at the time. Finally, we will have a go using the 300/90 anointed face puncher for the last area, and then, or for the next area, sorry, and then for the last area and the boss we'll switch over to the Terra anointed gear, have a little talk about that and complete the map.
I'm unstoppable. Let's go
Well,
around.
we managed to kill ourselves and get a second wind at the same time there. They're all running away. You can play very aggressively with this build and you're certain to have good results, even if occasionally with my poor gamesmanship I do go down and take a knee now and again. Fully able to get back up again. Right, so we've cleared out those three areas with three different anointed face punchers. I'm going to take some ammo here. I'm going to save quit the game, activate the event which is running at the moment, which is the Bloody Harvest event, so that we can use our Terra anointed gear. You don't have to have the Terra anointed, you don't have to have the Bloody Harvest event enabled, because I do have the facilities to generate Terra upon myself, and we'll talk about that in just a moment when I have enabled the event. So see you in a moment. Right, welcome back. I have enabled the Bloody Harvest event, and we are going to use some Terra anointed gear to complete the last of this map. So the Terra anointed gear that I'm going to use is I'm going to use this while terrified, gain increased crit damage. The more terror you have, the higher the bonus. Whilst the face puncher cannot do crit damage itself, the sticky bombs will. So aim for crits and you will have, at 3 stacks of terror, 100% crit damage bonus. So it's doubling your crit damage. Now, to apply terror to ourselves, whilst the event is on, ghosts will spawn, and if you allow them to touch you, they will apply terror. However, we may want to control this a little bit more, or we may not have the event enabled. It may be after November the 5th, so the event is no longer active, or we may just have turned it off like I did in the first part of this combat section. But there is a great anointment that you can get, and you can put it on or have it on your grenade, and that is melee attacks have a 25% chance to apply terror to yourself. Hunter Seeker is not my preferred grenade for this build. I would prefer this anointment on a cryo hex. I currently don't have one. There's probably going to be a bit of farming involved to get one of those, but for demonstration purposes, to show how the anointment works, we have it on this Hunter Seeker. So we're going to move forward, and as we shoot things we will apply terror to ourselves. Whilst we're terrified, our crit damage will go up because of the anointment on the face puncher. As you can see from the green glow around the screen, we have terror applied now. And these ghosts that are coming out, these are what will apply terror to yourself, like that. That will keep our terror up, but they do damage. And being able to apply the terror when we want to apply it, by use of the anointment on that grenade, is preferable. We'll get this final enemy up here who's decided he wants to hide. And we'll work our way through to the final boss. Looks like we've got one stuck in the wall there. Well, we can get a bit of a terror applied to ourselves by shooting the drone rangers. If we're able to get something onto his crit spot, then we'll see a noticeable increase in damage from the terror anointment. There we go, he's turned his back to us. And made short work of Captain Troll. Now, I would say that the terror build is not quite as powerful as the regular build. It's dependent upon the anointment that you have on your face puncher. The anointment that I have on this particular face puncher is while terrified gain increased crit damage. The best anointment to have on this gun would more likely be when terrified gain increased damage and fire rate, because that would not be dependent upon us getting crits. As you saw there, he didn't really want to turn round, so it was difficult to get the crits on him. But the terror build will work as long as you have some method of applying terror to yourself. So the Anointment melee attacks have a 25% chance to apply terror to yourself on either your grenade or your shield. Would be advantageous to use the terror build. And one thing to note, that during the event, or whilst you are terrified, weapons will have greater recoil. However, if the weapon has a terror anointment on it, then the real recoil will not be as bad. So having a terror anointment on your weapon will negate the extra recoil that is applied to your weapon when terrified. However, in some testing I've found that this doesn't work for all terror anointments, and in fact the terror anointment that I have here, whilst terrified, deal 75% bonus cryo damage. That doesn't seem to negate the bad effects of the terror, so I am preferring to use the terrified crit damage anointed face punches that I currently have. However, I think on balance, the terror build is viable, but it's not as powerful as the standard builds. So, you know, try them out, see which suits your playstyle. Obviously, to play the terror build outside of the event, you will need a method of applying terror to yourself. So you will need a shield or a grenade with this anointment on it. And obviously you will need some sort of terror anointment on your main weapon. But that is the build, updated for terror as well. I'll leave a link in the description to the skill tree on the BL3 skill tree calculator, so that you can have a look at the build. If you've enjoyed this content, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. I've been LD50, you've been lovely. Bye for now.